teach in the counselor education program here, and I get to speak to you all about the exciting, thrilling world of IRB. We all know that correlation does not mean causation. However, I think there's something statistically significant about the new guy presenting on IRB after lunch with cookies being given out and being videotaped.
He's in college.
No doubt. Yeah, they say there's no doubt. Okay. In your handout, you should have one handout looks like this: research compliance combined cover page. Don't freak out. Just go ahead and find it. We'll use that load it later. And I don't have a handout of this. If you are one of those where you gotta have it, it's just because, you know, late deadline. Oh, I'm gonna change this, changing all that. So there's the QR code, or you can just, that's the tiny URL for this PowerPoint. Otherwise, I believe Dr. Linderholm will have it all posted and available for you afterwards. Okay? Here's what I would like to do, because there's a lot to this. I'm just going to talk about some framing principles and thoughts. Just kind of cover all the bases, because I know for many of you, you're coming in at different levels, different stages of your program. So just kind of giving a broad introduction, talking about some of the components of IRB, an outline of the process here at Southern that we have for IRB. And then this cover sheet that you have, I'm going to ask you to engage in the small group work, do a practice activity, actually looking over an IRB application. Okay? After that, we recently in the College of Ed had a little workshop symposium kind of deal where we talked about, hey, what's going on, what's the current state of IRB here at Southern, and there's some helpful hints that came from that. I want to share those with you. And then some time for questions. And really what I want to say, and we'll talk about this throughout, is it's an evolving process, IRB, and so there's always change. And so because of that, please note I am not an expert on IRB. In a lot of ways, as you're going to, if you haven't already experienced it, I'm in the same boat with you. As a researcher, as an advisor, as a faculty member, I go through these same exact processes as you as students will do. And so it's really great. Ask me, ask other faculty members, ask your chair, ask your program advisor, just ask for help. Because to be honest, that's what I do. If there's something I don't understand, I'll go knock on the door and talk to my colleagues and say, help me understand this. How can I structure this better? Okay? That's the plan. Here's the three things for me I really want to make sure, at least these are important. When you leave here, that you know about IRB, Institutional Review Board. One, IRB is all about protecting people. Okay? End of the day, that's what it's about. It is not, number two, it's not just a hoop to jump through. We're joking about hazing. That's not what it's about. And the third thing, really pragmatic for you guys, and on the West Coast, so I say guys, inclusive guys, I know. For you guys is, you know, the timing is critical, and timing can be unpredictable. And again, it's not some nefarious plot against junior research. Just know it's unpredictable. So, always err on the side of caution. Okay? Those are the three take-homes I really want you to have. As a brief shout-out, why on earth would I want to do this? Side thing, guys? It's difficult. IRB is a difficult process to navigate. A lot of difficult questions, a lot of work. But again, it should be. Because this is about protecting people, protecting their welfare and their rights. For me, professional school counselor, before coming to academia, all my time was at the elementary level, because I'm not mature enough to get any other level of school. But I see that because all of my time was working with those kiddos from kindergarten through 6th grade. And so whenever just because of my, I don't mean a bad bias, but the lens that I look through research, first to my mind is always those little kids. So of course, this is difficult and complicated, but it better be because it's protecting them. Empathy, just finishing my second year here at Southern, very much enjoying it, but every institution has their own way of approaching IRB. So for me, I made it through the dissertation process. I can handle this. It's like, whoa, how do we do IRB? So a little bit of that empathy for you all, in case this does feel like a big obstacle or challenge. And then the last thing I want to say, not to be we're talking about your research, you're not adding one chemical to another chemical. These are students' lives that we're actually dealing with. For those of you who were in the quant section earlier with Dr. Tysinger, we're talking about the challenges of a truly experimental design. In the school setting, I can't say I have this great reading curriculum, so I'm going to choose you all, and you're going to get no reading instruction for the next year. You're going to get regular reading instruction, you're going to get my experimental. I can't do that because there are real consequences that come. Okay? So let's talk about some of the framing principles and thoughts. I had these up here just recently, a bunch of movies that came out talking about research gone wrong, if you will. Milgram experiment, Stanford prison experiment. So IRB, Institutional Review Board, really looking at our conduct as researchers. When we go about researching, we have an obligation to act in the public good, recognizing that the risks, you're going to be asked to quantify, to describe the risks of your research and the benefits, recognizing that if you have risks, that's not an unacceptable thing. We understand that's inevitable. When we start to get concerned, wait, what do you mean there's no risks? Life has risks. Research has risks to it. What could be some of those consequences? Have you thoroughly thought them out? And then always looking just in the same way, I talked down here about, for me, I hope this is helpful. For me, my framework that I'm looking at this, when we talk about ethical research, I'm pairing it with ethical practice. For me as a practitioner, I have what can be done, what should be done. I have the codes or rules that guide me, and I describe what it is by what it isn't oftentimes. Ethical practices, you don't do this, 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 and this. We have the same approach with research and ethical research, but at the end of the day, just like ethical practice, whether I'm a teacher, a principal, a counselor, a psychologist, at the end of the day, it really comes down to peer or expert review. And that's what IRB is going to be doing. It's going to be submitted before a panel of faculty members. They're going to review everything and see, is this fitting within the conduct that classifies as ethical research? I already mentioned, purpose is to protect the rights and welfare of human subjects. One important point is because it's important for federal monies. This is part of federal statute, federal law. The other thing I always want to stress, again, I already shared my lens, is it's protecting the welfare and rights of all participants from all populations, which means oftentimes these people who aren't even aware of those rights, again, just specifically thinking about children as a vulnerable population. Protects the university from lawsuits, protects the reputation of our university. Again, money, that if we want to keep receiving those federal monies, those grant money, those research dollars, we have to abide by that. And the last thing is for you as a researcher, it's one more protection that you have from lawsuits and also just from unintentional errors. I was talking with one of you all here about, when any of us say, hey, any examples, you're running a risk of, okay, how about mine? But if you do that, then it's just one more way to kind of bounce an idea and get free feedback. This is one more example of that. You're putting forth, here's what I want to do, and that panel is tearing it apart to protect the research participants, but also to protect you. You know what? You really should structure it this way, otherwise you could be heading down a path you don't want to go. The research that's conducted in this manner, we have established standards. And again, as I mentioned, that the risks are considered, they're minimized. And hopefully, when you're looking at it, you're articulating, you're framing the benefits that will come from my research are going to outweigh those risks. And then when we talk about informed consent, making sure that we have these three components, there's disclosure, there's enough information there that the participants can make an informed decision about participation, that they're competent, that they're legally competent for that, or with minors or for those who are judged incompetent, that we have legal authorization, and then voluntary. There's no coercion. Even a big one in the school setting can be social coercion. How are you going to structure it so that if anyone has the option or the right not to participate, but but you're handing out all the protocols to everyone in the class, and all the other students are, oh yeah, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it, that there's not that social coercion, even if you don't intend for that to happen. Okay? I'm gonna slow down there. Questions so far? I just realized I'm throwing this stuff at you. The cookies are starting to settle in. When we look at how it's codified, research is systematic investigation, research development, testing, evaluation, designed to develop or contribute to generalizable knowledge. And the human subject, living individual about whom an investigator conducting research obtains data through intervention or interaction with the individual, or identifiable private information. Forgive me for reading right off the slide, but I really wanted to hit on that because that's important, especially in the school system. You may put forth your proposal and say, I'm not even going to be interacting with the students. I'm just retrieving data from the district server. That's still research. Identifiable private information. So when we look at the components of IRB, we have faculty reviewers from disciplines. We have fellow researchers and student mentors, and then as well as community members, trying to get as many voices as possible. They're charged with protection, as we already talked about, respect. Somebody say this for me. That. And justice. Okay? So that making sure, again, the welfare is provided for and everyone involved, institutions, researchers, and participants, their welfare is protected. So I sort of structured this kind of like a flipped, if you will, pedagogy. Here's what I mean by that. All of you in here, if you haven't done it already, are going to be required to take the city training, the city IRB training. If you have completed that online training, can I see your hand? Okay, great. Hands down. If you have not, don't worry. That's coming down. We'll talk about that in a minute. About it. It's free to you. You have to register online. It's free to you. City training will go from institution to institution and carry it over or to the organization. So that's great that once you have completed, you can renew it. But just so that you know, some of the big things to be looking for, some of the guiding components that led to IRB, the Belmont report out of '79, and really looking at these core elements that they wanted to make sure were always present in ethical research. From that, the common rule that still guides how institutions have their IRBs and the research being conducted there. Informed consent, again, like we talked about the risk versus benefit. HIPAA and FERPA, and now there's another one that we'll talk about, the Protected People Information Act, something along those lines. What's that?
For data mining?
Yeah, for data mining, as well as for the types of questions that you can ask students. So just being aware of the laws that are impacting your research, and then the type of data collection and the other considerations. It's one thing to take, as I said, data off of a server and analyze it. It's another thing to meet face-to-face with students, recording them on audio, recording the video. There's a lot more considerations. We have a wonderful department here on campus, and the site is fantastic. The one thing I think I put on here, I really want to point out is the bottom of the page always has a date stamp for the last revision. Do not make the error of thinking that once you download the form, you're good to go. The forms themselves are always being revised continually. So, my recommendation is when you go to the Research Integrity, the ORSP or ORSSP site, bookmark it. And that way you're constantly checking from the source itself. They have all an outline of the process, and then when you click on each one, it breaks down to show you all the steps and the tools that are available. For you, this is from the Graduate Research Handbook. The 3 steps you need to complete. Obviously, complete the online city training. Then you're going to submit your completed IRB application. And then, after X amount of time, you receive the approval for your research from the IRB. says your initial certification is valid for 3 years, portable, registration required, but it's free to all. When you're completing your application, you have to kind of do a little bit of a dance. And what I mean by that is, for this cover page like we have here, you'll notice almost all the fields have a word limit. So you have to walk this balance of how can I provide as much information as possible so the reviewers really get a sense of what I want to do, but at the same time stay within that word limit. Definitely, when you do have the broad description, when you have those avenues where you can just run, provide as much info as possible. Don't just send it in with minimum information and expect a happy response. Do they have enough information to make that key decision? Is there enough benefit to outweigh the risks of this research? In addition to the university site for IRB, also know on our own College of Ed site, there's some great templates on there, some great resources that you can use. And the other thing I would say is always make sure you're using plain, simple language. I think Dr. Botter talked about having a significant other or a friend or a colleague read your paper, and just because we're always staring at it, and we know what we mean, have them read it. I would do that also with, I did that with my doctoral papers, I also did that with my IRB. I'll have someone, because the IRB board is made up of people across the whole institution, as well as people from the community. So they may not be as familiar with self-efficacy as we just had here. To say self-efficacy and then put Bandura in quotations afterwards, we're all like, oh, okay, yeah, because we're in education. They may not understand what's going on with that. So definitely write it so that anyone can understand. And the other thing, it may sound silly, I'll use the Microsoft Word spell check, but I'll enable the developmental appropriateness indicator. Is it Fleischer-Kincaid? Is that the reading scale that they use? That gives you an approximate age level for conceptualization. I'll use that as well to make sure, okay, is my writing going to be readily engaged by anyone reviewing? Before the review board will actually tear apart my application and look at it, their graduate assistant staff are also going to be looking at that, sorting through them and reading them. I want to make sure it can just go along with the time. Then, happy day, we get IRB approval. Okay? A minimum of 1 month should be our expectation for expedited review. That's expedited. Okay? For most of us mortals, we're looking at 60 business days for a full review. Most of us are going to qualify as full review. Okay? So, again, my recommendation is, in terms of timeline, you take that and you walk it backwards. Okay, so then that means if it's going to take 60 days for IRB, obviously I can't collect data until I have that. So 60 days prior, okay, how much time does my advisor need? Okay, then there's revisions. Does that make sense? So walking that timeline back. And thinking about that when I'm thinking about, well, especially if I'm doing my research within the school setting, what does this mean for scheduling data collection? What does this mean for doing the analyses and the writing? So since I just kind of hinted at it, let's talk about the 3 types of review. When we send in our application, there's going to be a full review, expedited review, or exempt from review. Full review, everybody's coming to the party. They're all looking at my application and saying, okay, what do we think? In this research, does this sound like ethical practice? What do we want changed? The benefits outweigh the risks. Expedited is when, because of this main criteria, that there's no more than minimal, that's the official term, minimal risk, then just the chair and 1 designee can review it. And that's why we have that expedited timeline of, it could just be a month. Exempt, if we meet the qualifications for exempt, because it's low risk, then just the chair or the designee will stamp that off. All 3 still require informed dissent. All 3 still require following the guidelines, of course. The only, quote, benefit to this is the turnaround. spoiler alert, I'm going to burst your bubble. Don't, don't start thinking it's going to be very rare to get exempt or even get expedited. Am I speaking out of turn? Is that true? Okay, thank you very much. So, per the common rule, when we look at that, they do say that research conducted in established, commonly accepted, no, so it's these 3 times. Commonly accepted educational settings, I'm getting excited by that because I'm going to be in a school. Normal educational practices, well, I'm just looking at a new pedagogy. Teaching's always going on. Greater than minimal risk, well, wait a minute. It's not greater than minimal. They're going to be at school anyway. It's part of the classroom environment. So these 3 components. Here's a challenge for us. Number 1, great. Commonly accepted educational settings, yeah, we got that. But normal educational practices, they get very specific about research on regular and special education instructional strategies, research on the effectiveness or the comparison among instructional techniques. Not normal could be some of the very things that I want to investigate. So right here, I might get tripped up, where they say, you know what, you don't qualify for exempt. Maybe expedited. The last one that's the greatest challenge that most of the time we get tripped up on is this right here, vulnerable populations. Children, so minors, immediately will hit that red flag of, no, 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 no. Anytime we're dealing with minors, there's a potential for risk here, and we need a full review. Does that make sense? And then, as I already mentioned, we have FERPA and the PPRA. This is a big one for me. With my doctoral studies, I was looking at resilience with students. I was looking at how happiness or subjective well-being, religiosity, faith, spirituality, I was looking at how all those components played in to helping students in academic settings. I was really excited by that. I thought I had something there. However, for the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, parents have the right, anytime there's any sort of research, survey research about, where the topics include beliefs, political views, psychological concerns, anything along those lines. So right there, in addition to my research being risky, because I'm working with minors, I was even further in the danger zone because I was asking potentially taboo questions. So, moral of the story here is, yeah, that's an option for exempt or expedited. Don't count on it. Plan for full review. Always consult with your advisor, your chair. End of the day, always check with them. Okay? But prepare and plan for a full review. If you even after reviewing this, I really think I have grounds for expedited, talk to your chair. And they can guide you. Okay. You guys are such good sports. Here's what I'd like to ask you to do. I know you're shocked that this is fictional with a student name being I'm a freaking genius. But so I'm going to ask you to do, if you would please get together in a little cluster, maybe at least minimum 3 people. I'd like you to start, I'm going to give you 2 questions. We'll start with this one, and I'm asking you to share out. As a reviewer, pretend right now, congratulations, here's your honorary degree. Now we want you to serve on the IRB board. As a reviewer, what would be some questions or concerns you would have with this research? Okay? I'm going to give you about 5 minutes, and I'm going to call on some groups to know what would we be concerned about. Okay? Go. Pretend the names are a good real name. then again, how is it being stored, and then what are you doing with it afterwards? How long are you keeping it, and when are you destroying it? Okay? Excellent. What's another question or concern we might have about this? You what? Got it. Did y'all hear that? At risk.
And the fact that they didn't mark greater considerable risk on that, in the back part of the application. And that's the vulnerable, if it's a vulnerable population, you're already in that category.
So first of all, how am I classifying at risk? And what information am I taking, identifiable information of students am I taking to classify that? But then, in terms of a separate question of the risk to research participants, is this a vulnerable population that I'm working with?
Consider that risk.
How is this a vulnerable population? They're children. Yeah. Anything else about this that might be considered risky? Great. Health risk, right? You're gonna let me take a bunch of kids and just have them run laps until location? Great. Is it 90 degrees summer heat in Georgia? Okay. What about informed consent? Do we know anything about informed consent here? So there should be a consent form, a copy of it included with the packet. We didn't have that here. Let's say paper. Okay. Whose consent am I going to need? Parents. That would be something to find out. Because according, if they're emancipated, that's true, right? Otherwise, at least in a school setting, I would think even for the seniors, you would still need that. Okay.
What about a physical? For athletic programs, you have to have some kind of physical. That's not necessarily included in the informed consent.
Excellent.
One of the things we talked about was if the county that you're doing this in had their own policy, where you had to get permission from the area you're working in, and also with it being after school, would you have to have other permissions if the administration is off campus? Who's in charge of it when administration is not there?
Great. Now, of course, thank you all. Of course, here I am, going crazy, running rampant with an idea. A lot of these examples that you're talking about, Professor Barter was talking earlier about thinking through the type of research you want to do and his statement about what's practical, you may have a phenomenal research idea, research question, research problem. You may even think of a great intervention to use, but then, well, is this even feasible in our county? Is this even something that we can do? And so a lot of that can go into when you're planning at the IRB. Also, for those policies that maybe implementing your research that you want to do, the intervention, bring those in line and make sure you explain. Otherwise, I might have a district policy that says, if I have this PE clearance form or whatever, it's already taken care of. They've already completed a physical from an MD, and I have parental approval, all of these pieces which I need. If I don't clearly articulate it that here, again, as a faculty reviewer, you're going to say, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to allow this to happen to children in the watch.
Don't most student handbooks at each county give you those permissions that parents already signed in?
Well, but,
Not for us.
and again, as a faculty, because you got to remember, I'm on the IRB and I teach in chemistry. So what do I know about? So again, if that's the case for where you're doing some districts have, even when we're talking about videos or audios, some districts have revised their registration sheets, so now parents have to explicitly check a box if they do not want their child videotaped or photoed for media. It used to be you had to check, yes, you may. Now, not all, but many are going to the checking, I do not want.
But this information to be provided to an outsider, it's not even for the school. The researcher is not from the school system. Let's say even if parents already provided information to be
Yes,
videotaped.
yes.
I mean, here we come outside
Yes.
from the town, so it's a different thing. We have
Yes.
to provide our own.
Yeah. Yep. That is, no, thank you. I sort of, I didn't, say
Unless
that
you're doing
clearly
it from
enough.
your classroom or your building or
But
whatever,
that
it depends on the,
yeah, school.
Yeah, you still, because it is not, even though it may be happening within the normal educational experiences, it is for something completely separate. It is for my research.
Also too, along the lines of videotaping, when you take into consideration if you're doing something in the classroom, think about those who will not be in the videotape, how will they be impacted by the stuff. So, they can't just sit off in the corner and do an intervention when you want to put in place.
Yeah. And I was joking, the extreme earlier when I was joking about the reading intervention, none for you, right? But definitely, if we are doing some sort of grouping or differentiated groups, I mean, again, well then what's going on? What are those students losing during that time if they're exercising that right of not participating? You know, even if the students themselves, as minors, are thrilled because they're out on the playground for the 10 minutes, what are they losing as a risk?
If it's rejected and needs more review, am I to expect another 60 days?
So in general, you'll write this up, you'll send it to your chair. What do you think? You'll send it in, and then they'll review it. Oftentimes, if they have some of those preliminary questions, they'll write you back and say, hey, what is meant by this? And then they'll send it forward. I would think oftentimes, check with your chair, oftentimes before a flat rejection, they would have you come before the board. That's happened to me, rather than just saying, no, I was called before the board because of some of the concerns that they had. You know, again, your chair should be able to see a lot of these red flags and be able to say, whoa, let's make sure they have this information, because otherwise they may think we're going this way. Or be able to say, oh, maybe I didn't say this clearly enough. We can't do that kind of approach. You can't do a bunch of group of kids after school.
That's one issue. It may be trivial, but like when you look at the summary, it says 50 words or less. Like, are they going to be a stickler to that? A little bit over 50 words.
50 or less. Now, again, 50 or less, and then, where is it? Oh, I'm sorry, it doesn't tell you on here. This is the cover page. The next part that you'll complete is where you actually get to go crazy and describe your whole research project. But this is just that project summary that, if nothing else, allows the IRB to talk to each other. Which one are we talking about? Oh, the crazy guy who wants to do running with kids for college and career. Oh, okay, right. Okay. So this is just the project summary. And again, when you go to the college site for research integrity, ORRSP, that's the one there. When they have that outline, it has the whole do this, and it's even, I named the numbers 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Okay. So let me challenge you a little bit. Pretend, for whatever reason, I've convinced you to do this research project, and now this is what you're sending in. When you're putting together your narrative, that next piece that goes along with the cover page, and you're actually describing how you're going to do that, what do you think would be the one key thing that you would really want to articulate for the reviewers? about a bunch of concerns that come to light here. Out of all those concerns in your group, choose one of them. What information would you make sure to explain on that narrative to know that the reviewer's got a good picture, you're not here to harm kids, you're really here to look at the benefit of this research to outweigh the risk? What would you address and how would you say it? Okay? Give you 5 minutes to do that. I'm going to see a share back out.
Picking people based on their appearance at risk, or how do you have that?
Great. And and even forgive me, when we talked about the protection of human rights amendments, family FERPA, and all of this, I don't want to generalize too much, but oftentimes when we look at the literature, how is socioeconomic status approximated in the school setting? What do we use? Free and reduced lunch. Okay, again, not always, but oftentimes if I do a search for literature of intervention for at-risk students, oftentimes the indicator they will use is free or reduced lunch. Okay, so if I'm phrasing that, if I'm saying I'm working with at-risk kids and I'm only thinking of that in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm not asking for the family income because I don't have that information. In a sense, it's been de-identified, if you will, for me, because all I have is the lunch list, the breakfast list. Okay? But again, someone from another discipline won't know that. One more.
One off of that, in the, cover page, it did say that they were at risk in regard to graduation requirements. So they are looking at it that way, but how many classes are you behind? Is that what, so you still get into that, but they did look at the graduation requirements. But I even thought about, if they're at risk, at what point, let's say that they miss this after-school thing X number of times, at what point is it gonna hurt them, hurt your study? So you have a requirement of how many times they have to attend, and all because they may not, one day they may have a ride, one day they may not have a ride, they may not be able to stay.
Yeah.
And if they're at risk, are they having to stay after school for detention, or to make up work? So you get into all that too.
In terms of conservation of energy, so a lot of these questions, all the work that you're putting together for your lit review, right? And looking at, okay, what does the literature say about this or that? You're going to be able to use all of that in here, in that narrative. You're going to be able to quantify, this is what I mean by at-risk for graduation, or this is what I mean by at-risk student. And hey, it's not just me, it's this person, intercitations here, right? So make sure to use a lot of that information so that I don't at all mean it's a trivial research is based, not just, it's based on this and this and this. You can-
Did I miss something? So they're just gonna run. So how is the research gonna measure their career readiness? That's what, that would have to.
You did not miss it. You did not miss anything. You picked up on me intentionally leaving stuff out. You're fine. Yeah. The emperor has no clothes on, right? We're all- No, you're all right. Okay. So, again, this made up, this is the cover sheet, that this is the first thing they see. And as they're going through, they're gonna look through this and scan it, and then they're going to take, okay, so then I should find out all these questions narrative, I should be looking for consent forms, right? This is how they're gonna start putting together a checklist. Okay. Constantly changing to reflect research, to reflect the setting and the needs, okay? So just this last year, we had an in-house symposium for the College of Ed, and we had some of our folks who sit on the university's IRB, and some other people who are much more expert at this than I am, with a lot of helpful tips, okay? Here are some of their tips. First of all, it's just a paradigm shift. Again, don't think of it as if you're submitting part of your dissertation writing. Think of it as if you're submitting an article. You're never, very rarely will you ever get a perfect, wonderful, and very rarely will you get not forget about it. It's almost always going to be revise and resubmit. Okay, well, we noticed this, this, and this. Can you please attend to these? And revise those, and then, okay, you're clear now. Definitely fill in all the blanks here, and then also keep these in mind when you're constructing your narrative for the proposal. The literature review, I talked about that. Use that when you're compiling all along the way. Be thorough, enough details. And for me, this is just, when it says ensure consistency between the information, oftentimes I will submit mine digitally, and I will just make it just very, like a Adobe PDF, so it's all perfectly lined up. They can utilize bookmarks, everything to find out what the preferred method for your chair, for you are, but how can you just make it just real fluid for them? They have checklists also on the site. I'm going to show you here real quick. Here's the research integrity site, and then really quickly, IRB forms. Here's the process as it goes down. Each one breaks down the steps. You can get the actual forms themselves. And what's nice, again, I'm going for full here. The cover page you just did, the narrative, your credentials for completing SIG training. But then, as I said, they have templates for, well, here's what an informed consent document might look like. When we talk about just, how you satisfy the institution as well as district, this would be one of the things I know from me with my research. I've had to have situations where I can merge the two. One covers the institution covers the district. Other times I have to merge them into one, or sometimes I have to have two separate ones. We already talked about the appropriate language when you're writing out your proposal, your narrative. This is probably, you already know this, but definitely when you're doing consent, keep that in mind to know that the developmental level, the word choice, everything you're using in those documents need to be at the level for your participants. So, what is the average reading ability of sophomores if you're working with sophomores? Okay? So when you're doing these consent documents, make sure you're gearing it towards them. Addressing confidentiality to participants. And definitely this one, as I said about earlier, you guys already hit on this, have a plan for students whose parents do not grant consent for students, or the students who themselves do not grant consent to participate. You can't have them just sitting in the back of the room. What will you be doing? What will those students be doing? And structuring it so that it's not creating additional risk or less benefit. basic, and I'm sorry, but it happens a lot. Include all materials requested, and proofread, have it proofread by someone else. Already talked about timeline, just remembering that your chair most likely is supervising multiple research projects, so put enough timeline in there so they can review yours, give you that feedback, and you can turn it around before sending it on in. With the caveat, what Dr. Butter said earlier about committee members and making sure everyone plays well together, you can ask other COE faculty members or IRB members for their 2 cents and their input. Any direct concerns, you can talk to the IRB office themselves, email them. Yeah, the only other thing, somebody had mentioned about with the research class, you complete the IRB as the last assignment for the research class. That's correct for many of you who did that. And so, just as a reminder, if something changes, you don't have to take the class over again. You need to redo an IRB. So the IRB, the example given was, well, for my EDS, I did an IRB and I completed that. It was approved. I'm doing my dissertation research, and it's an extension of that. Can I ride that first IRB? Okay, that's a great question to ask your chair, because most likely, no. It's going to be different research. There's only a limited time window for renewing or continuing research. But the point in saying that is, it doesn't mean you have to go back and take that EDS class all over again just for the IRB application. So here's the ORSSP link. That's the specific page they have for all the IRB forms. And then this is the US link for that. This is sort of a fast and furious sort of approach to IRB, at least to kind of get it on your radar and thinking. For those of you who already have it completed, congratulations. Go forth and research. Put it on there now or later. Questions now, let me know. Questions later, you're welcome to come ask or check with your chair.
You talked about that for the EDS students, usually the last semester they're working on. For the doctoral students, is it usually right after candidacy exam?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Okay.
Do you know when that is? When do doctoral students complete their IRB in their
After
sequence?
candidacy exam?
They supposed to complete their IIB before they do the prospectus, which is a 3 complete chapter dissertation. After the pre-prospectus.
What about what the EDS?
EDS is usually at the end, but there's variability as to kind of EDS, isn't there?
EDS, I'm not doing EDS. I think it's EDS, the IIB, you're supposed to obtain the IIB approval before you even carry on the project. Otherwise, you won't be able to carry on your research project. Yeah, that means before you're doing your course action research.
Right,
yeah. You have to obtain your IIB approval. That means without IIB approval, they cannot really doing the action research. That's true.
From what I understand.
So just as an example, worked with John last year and with the EDS track, really trying to front load a lot of these kind of questions ahead of time, so you can start thinking about your research and thinking about, okay, I want to go this direction and I want to be looking at this and this. It's changed his mind. He's doing something different. Okay, it's not the end of the story. You can put it together, you can file for IRB, but again,